So, today on Shakespeare's birthday, we are going to examine to what extent Ben Jonson's quote about Shakespeare's immortality has been proved correct. And I would start by mentioning that in the year 2000, A&E decided to do this special. They called it the Biography of the Millennium. They counted down the 100 most, historians voted on the 100 most influential figures of the millennium that was coming to an end in the year 2000. And William Shakespeare came in number 5 on that list, pretty darn high. And I'm going to include a link to that. It is available from somebody else on YouTube. That it's well worth watching their analysis of why. But you'll see an interview in that with no less of an authority on contemporary drama and film than Steven Spielberg. He says something to the effect of, if you see any movie where you cannot in some way connect it to Shakespeare, then you can call that filmmaker the next William Shakespeare. So let's look at some comparisons of some contemporary films you may have seen where we can see the parallels. And then, as I promised yesterday, I'm going to wrap it up with one that might be more questionable. What can we connect this to? And then I'm going to ask that as the question. So you got to watch to the end and then make your comments about that. I will do a follow-up video to follow up what can we connect to this final Shakespeare play that I'm going to mention there. And the people that participate will get shout-outs in that follow-up video, and you'll get a special shout-out if you give my favorite answer, if you're the first one to say the example that I was thinking of. So let's get into that now. However, first, before we get into that, if you haven't done this already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like, and let's get to it. Okay, we'll start with one where the parallel between then and now might not be quite so obvious, but if you think about it, I think you can see it. 1970, Best Picture winner at the Oscars, General Patton begins the film by addressing the soldiers. 30 years from now, when you're sitting in front of the fire with your grandson on your knee, and he asks you, "What did you do during the Great World War II?" You won't have to say, "Well, I shoveled shit in Louisiana." 400 years earlier, Shakespeare had his own version of that speech to the troops. "And gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day." Now we'll go on to some of the more direct comparisons that you can see. It was a lover and his house with the hay and the mower and the Just stop here for a moment, because just about everybody that likes to see the parallels between The Lion King and Shakespeare, they always bring up Hamlet, because, well, yeah, we have Scar kills Mufasa, that's Claudius kills Hamlet's father, and then it's his job to avenge the murder and so forth. But I actually see a lot more of a parallel between Simba and Prince Hal, the future King Henry V. The people that compare it to Hamlet say that you bring in Timon and Pumbaa. Oh, well, they're Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but don't they remind you of anybody else? Before Simba is able to do what would make his father proud and assume his place in the circle of life, he's got to first grow up and distance himself from the bad influence of the Hakuna Matata lifestyle. Doesn't that remind you of another Shakespeare character? Just think about it. Anyway, we'll close on my personal favorite, the one that will make the focus of our subsequent video and the discussion here. Where do we see parallels in Macbeth? So, when you think about what modern day film or television you could connect to the themes of Macbeth, I'd like you to keep in mind something I've been thinking a lot about that I read in this one book, Easy Guide to Shakespeare. It's published by the people that do No Fear Shakespeare. If you're trying to get your kids into Shakespeare and they're overwhelmed by the language, that's very helpful, where they have on one page, the text Shakespeare wrote, and right next to it, they put the translation into common, the way we would speak today. But this publication where they break it down play by play, but something I'd like to read from, and I want you to think about this. Where do we see a character within the last 10 years of film and television? So it says, Macbeth's downfall isn't simply the result of a personal error or calculation. Rather, his failure is part of a necessary string of events that follow as steadily and inevitably as a row of falling dominoes. However, Shakespeare does not rely on any Christian notion of judgment or divine intervention. Instead, he relies on two essentially secular ideas: the chain of sins and the notion that murder will out. The concept of the chain of sins suggests that one crime inevitably leads to future crimes. The initial offense desensitizes the criminal to vicious acts, thereby making future transgressions easier. I want you to think about that. Let's think that over, and let's pay honor to Shakespeare once again on his birthday, and to the Steven Spielbergs and the other people that carry his legacy on today.
Hey ho, sing hey ho, to the